Welcome to Reflections. I'm your guest host, John Van Auken, the director of the Edgar Cayce Foundation, and our guest today is a longtime Cayce researcher and speaker, Jon Shatat. And he's got a program coming up on the week of Congress on Saturday, June 18th, in which he discusses past lives and the future you and me. And it's about Cayce's idea of soul progression. So welcome, John. It's exciting to have you here and to talk about this upcoming event.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. So tell us a little bit about past lives and the future me and you.
Yeah, so I have had the privilege of interviewing Cayce reading recipients. So I work with the foundation, the Edgar Cayce Foundation, and what we do is we interview reading recipients and see how accurate the reading was and how much the reading has helped in their life. And you know, and whenever you look at a reading, a life reading, what you're actually looking at is someone's record in the book of life, in the Akashic record.
Yeah.
And so there's few things in this world that I find as fascinating as sitting down with a reading recipient, going over their reading when they're in their 70s, and the reading was, you know, they got it when they were 1 or 2, going over their reading and talking about the past lives, how much has this influenced you, how much has that influenced you. It is super fascinating.
Oh, I can imagine. You know, I've read those readings, and to speak to the actual person who received it, that must give you great insight.
Yeah, I remember like the very first interview I did was for a man named George Conjar, and he had been dying of tuberculosis in a sanatorium in Pennsylvania, and you know he was at a very advanced stage of the disease. So he was basically on his deathbed and he had no hope. And so he reached out to Mr. Cayce. Mr. Cayce gave him the reading for free because he couldn't afford it. And the day he got the reading, he checked out of the sanatorium, went home, and his entire family pitched in to get it done, and he got cured. And so I interviewed him, and he was so credible, and I left the interview saying to myself, oh my God, it's all true. It's all true, because like, it can be really abstract when you read the reading, it can be abstract, but once you meet the person, it becomes concrete.
Oh yeah, yeah. So somehow you're going to bring this content to us to enliven our sense of our past lives and our future?
Absolutely, and I feel also that there's so many lessons. There's like a lesson to be learned in each case.
Ooh.
So each reading recipient kind of has a lesson with it. And I'll give you an example. So I interviewed T.J. Davis.
Oh yeah.
You must be familiar with him.
Yes, I am.
Yeah, so his reading said he was the reincarnation of Alexander the Great and Thomas Jefferson.
Right.
And his reading said something to the effect, this entity will treat everyone the same. It doesn't matter what their level in life is, he will treat everyone the same. And I spent a whole day with the guy, and he was treating everybody the same. It was just such a thing, wow, I got to apply that in my life as well.
Wow. You know, it is interesting, when you think of past lives, people often think everybody's famous. But in all of the Cayce readings, they were not. They were ordinary people in previous incarnations, but a few times he gave profound past life historical person that is so famous, like Alexander the Great and Thomas Jefferson. But when you look into what they did in this incarnation, you find out they did similar things that they did in those previous incarnations.
Yeah, similar patterns. We all have these subconscious patterns. But I would also say, in his case, it was potential not met. So we all have this potential when we're born.
Oh, wow.
And very often we don't meet that potential. And I think it's kind of like our story, the story of humanity. Like, we have this great potential, but we don't always meet that potential.
Yeah. And we come in with some predisposed karmic relationships and situations, and to our outer personality we go like, why me? Well, I didn't have anything to do with this. But according to Edgar, we sure did.
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah.
So the future me, I'm sitting here thinking, you know, I've been living this incarnation mostly from past life viewpoint and present situation, but you're kind of showing me toward the future incarnations or my soul life?
Well, it's this concept, you know, like we can think 5 minutes ahead, we can think a year ahead, we can think 5 years ahead, or we can think lifetimes ahead. Like think with eternity in your sight.
Wow.
It's just a change in perception, how you look on life.
Right.
I mean, it took Jesus 33 lives to, you know, reach that level of perfection.
Now you're touching on a topic not everyone realizes, that Edgar actually said the soul that we know as Jesus of Nazareth actually had previous incarnations. And I believe Cayce also said that there never was a time when there wasn't the Christ light and the Christ messenger, and that it actually had come along to the point of Mary and Jesus, his mother, who got the archangel to announce her, and then she birthed Jesus.
Absolutely. And the beautiful thing from the Cayce perspective is that they teach that Jesus is the pattern. And that Jesus was the first, and you can be the second, I can be the third, the person watching can be the fourth, and so on. That we can accomplish that and reach that level.
A pattern.
Yeah.
Man, when I've studied Jesus a lot, and when I think of what he went through,
I know.
I don't know. Makes me a little nervous. Oh, wow.
Yeah, and that's why you have that passage in John 14 where Jesus says, you know, I am the vine, and my Father is the gardener who is grooming me.
Yes.
So he's being like, every part of me that doesn't bear fruit, I'm going to cut off. The Father cuts off. So
that's the pruning one, and I always believed that because I wondered why every time I got to being my better self, it seemed like some challenge hit me. And then I read that, I think it's in John 15, I read that and it said, you're being pruned so that you can bear more fruit. And I thought, oh gosh, here we go again, another challenge. Hugh Lynn Cayce, Edgar's firstborn son, used to tell me, challenges are opportunities for growth, soul growth, not personality growth, but soul growth. And so when those things hit me after having done well, I would go, why another test? Why another challenge? But it's that pruning idea of getting to our full potential.
Yeah, I know a pastor, and he says, John, if you're not going through a challenge, you're doing something wrong.
Yeah, that's true. Now, I'm a lot older than you, and I look back on my life, and I'm shocked how often serious challenges cycled in. And then there'd be periods of calm growth, you know, doing the Cayce diet and the practices and everything's cool, and then suddenly, wham, another challenge.
Yeah, and I think we need that to grow. Like if we stay in our comfort zone, so if we Edgar Cayce says the worst thing is stagnation. That's the worst.
Yeah.
The worst is stagnation. And it's just to go forward. And even if you fall flat, 6 foot forward on your face, at least you went 6 foot forward.
Right.
Without challenges, we don't grow.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like the bad part. Is that
I remember him saying, do something, right or wrong, do something, because in the doing comes your understanding.
Exactly. Yeah, it comes the understanding. And Spirit can work with you.
Yeah, you're moving, Spirit can move with you.
And if you're just sitting on the couch and you're stagnating, it's the worst.
It is. It is. What did he say? Be content but never satisfied.
Exactly, yes.
That one took me a while to grasp. But contentment is a disposition different from satisfaction. You know, and once I got satisfied and I thought I was cool and doing well, bam. And then I realized contentment is a steady place through the ups and downs of life.
Yes.
It's very different than being satisfied. Even now at my age, I'm always ready for another challenge because I've seen them too often. And does that develop your future self? Should I be thinking, well, I'm meeting this challenge now, so in the future I'll be better at
Absolutely.
something.
There's so many times in the readings when someone asks, hey, I want to do this and this and this, can I do this?
Yeah.
And sometimes Mr. Cayce would say, that will come in your future life. Your future lives will do this. You're building it up. You're always continuously building up.
Right.
Yeah, you know, a great example is Robert Shore. Like, he'd had a reading from Mr. Cayce that said in a past life he'd worked in customs. And so, and he was reading his reading every year. Like, he would read his reading, and when he was young, he wouldn't understand it. He would be like, it would be over his head.
Yeah.
But the more he read it, and he says every single time I read it, I learned something new in it. There's something I hadn't seen before.
Wow.
And then he became the head of customs in New York.
Oh.
So it's kind of like he built it up.
Right.
Yeah. It's a continuity of life that we build in each life.
Yes. Comes back. And what about people in our current incarnation? Can we actually affect our future relationships with them by working on the present situation?
Absolutely. You know, we are creative beings, right? So we create our own reality, we create our own future. And, you know, and this is part what I think that Jesus did, you know, going back to his past lives. Like, I think he knew his eventual life.
Destiny,
destiny.
yeah.
And so he prepared for it. And so we can do that by imagining it, by creating it in our minds, by working on ourselves. You know, we have to purge ourselves too. You know, we all have these subconscious patterns. And I talk about that in my talk about having subconscious patterns.
Subconscious patterns.
Or subconscious thought patterns that we have.
Thought patterns.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, I've got those.
I can give you an example if you want. So I was in a study group, and I would always recommend for everyone to go into a study group.
Yeah, of course.
And 1 week our discipline was to have no negative thoughts for a full week. So in 1 full week, we would have no negative thoughts. It was a great discipline. And so I went back into my car, and within 5 minutes, I said to myself, it's impossible not to have any negative thoughts. And that's a negative thought.
That's right.
Yeah. But as I was doing the exercise, I noticed that I had a negative subconscious thought pattern about an ex-girlfriend of mine. And I'll call her Geraldine, because I don't know, I haven't ever met a woman named Geraldine.
Okay.
So to be safe, I'll call her Geraldine.
Okay.
And I noticed that whenever I would see a trigger that would remind me of Geraldine,
Yeah.
the very first thought that came into my mind was, I will never forgive Geraldine.
Oh.
I will never forgive Geraldine. And that was like, and I wasn't even conscious anymore. Like, I'd become
it
subconscious.
Just comes right out.
Subconscious.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God. And when I became aware of it, because I wasn't really aware of it until I started doing the exercise. And when I became aware of it, I was like, oh my God. I don't want to be 80 and have this subconscious pattern in my mind saying, I'll never forgive Geraldine. I don't want to have it on my tombstone saying, here lies someone that never forgave Geraldine. So I was like, damn it, I got to forgive Geraldine.
Yeah.
And so I changed one word. I went from, I will always forgive, I went from, I'll never forgive Geraldine to I will always forgive Geraldine.
Oh.
So I started saying that to myself, I will always forgive Geraldine. Did I mean it? Absolutely not. But you fake it before you make it.
Yes.
So the more I was doing it, the more I could feel a change in me. I could feel like stuck energy in my abdomen that kind of flowed away.
Yeah.
And I totally forgave her. And then I do past life regressions. So I was under regression, and I was regressed back to a life that I had with her, and my guides were there, and I had this wound, and they just sewed the wound with a needle and a thread, and they sewed the wound closed.
Oh, wow.
And so now, whenever I think about Geraldine, it's like, I'll always forgive her. It's not even a question anymore.
Well, let me ask you this.
Okay.
Do you think the creative forces and the karmic energies will set you up to meet Geraldine again?
They might. They might or they might not. They probably will.
Oh,
they probably will.
The next lifetime, the future you, and in the back of your mind will be that I forgave this entity. I forgave. I'm not going to hold on to any grudges or revenge.
Exactly, because there's this classic example in the readings where this lady, is married to a husband, and her husband had done something to her in a past life, And so she asked Mr. Cayce, you know, why am I coming back with my husband? And Mr. Cayce said, because in the last life, you so wanted to get even with him that you promised you were going to get even with him, and that's why you're back.
And there you are.
And there you are.
Be real careful about that.
Be very careful.
Just say, you know, bless you, go on about your journey. I'm not holding on to any karma that I have to meet in the future.
A sure way to come back is just to hate that person and you'll meet the person again. Yeah.
You've set it up.
Yeah.
The energetics pull you back together. Oh, gosh. Yep. I remember your study group practice there was interesting because I remember my wife Doris and I saying, okay, for 1 week, we're not going to think negative about each other. And we lasted about 3 days.
That's impressive.
Well, it shows you that you've built a habit pattern, and that's not easy to overcome. It takes mindful, conscious attention to what's coming up and to subdue it, to change it, like you changing that one word.
Yeah, I call it the big brain cleanup.
The brain cleanup.
Taking this one thought, like I did with Geraldine.
Yeah.
And then there are other thoughts that we have as well. And you do it one by one by one. And then you get to a point where you can, like, 3 days without negative thoughts, or a week or a year without negative thoughts about the other person.
Yeah. Well, we did try again and again. You know, that's the other thing. Keep on keeping on. You're for sure going to get there if you keep trying. And even I think Jesus said, you know, dust yourself off, pick yourself up, and keep going. And so we did try, and we got to where we were pretty mellow with each other, and we knew each other's weaknesses and karmic patterns and thought patterns and style of personality. We were not similar people. We were complementary opposites. And so that was a challenge, but we did very well.
It's like those 2 words from Mr. Cayce, be persistent and consistent.
Yeah, boy, those are hard, especially for humans.
Yes.
Consistency and persistence. Wow. Yep. So tell us a little more of what you're going to share with us on June 18th, Saturday, at this program, Congress Week.
Sure. So we're going to go over reading recipients, the ones that I interviewed, the ones I researched. There's some amazing stories of healing in the readings that a lot of people aren't aware of. So I talked about George Conjar. There's a Catholic priest named Father McLaughlin. He would give sermons, and he would get seizures, and he would collapse in front of the entire congregation.
You're kidding.
Yeah, and so he got a reading from Mr. Cayce that resulted in a cure for him. So we'll be talking about him.
Oh, good.
Another great case is the case of Joe Bailey. Joe Bailey, he couldn't walk, and so they had to carry him up into the Cayce Hospital. They carried him. They had to carry him on the train to come here, and he was able to walk out.
What?
So there's some amazing stories of healing that people don't know. So we'll be talking about those. We'll be talking about other people that I've interviewed, and then we'll also be looking at like what is keeping us from reaching our full potential.
Yeah.
Like why haven't we reached our full potential? And I think part of it is addictions. People get stuck in addictions, and it grinds
Now you're
away.
talking about addictions of thinking patterns, action patterns, thought patterns, right?
Well, I have a question for you. What precedes thought? What comes before the thought comes in?
Emotion?
Desire.
Desire.
Desire. Cayce said desire is the father of activity.
Oh.
And that fundamentally we are desire beings before we are thought beings.
Oh.
And so with every, and it can be desire for comfort, a desire for self-empowerment, a desire for relief.
So somehow this guy that had to be carried up the stairs, when Cayce gave him his reading, his deeper self heard something that released him from the negativity of his desires and thoughts?
I think for him, I think he was in a, I talked to his family. He has died. So
he had passed on.
Yeah,
Okay.
so I interviewed his family, and they were saying, you know, he had gone to all these doctors. So he'd seen one specialist after the other, and the specialists all said, there is nothing we can do. Nothing we can do.
Okay.
And so as a last resort, what does he do? He goes to get a reading from Mr. Cayce. People would see him as a last resort. Cayce gives in the reading, it gives health suggestions.
Yeah.
But
Body.
also mental suggestions.
Mind.
Mind. You know, it's like
Yeah.
he would always say, you know, like, you know, why do you want to get well? Are you gonna do
Oh,
the
yeah,
same thing that you'll do when you get sick?
Yeah. What are you going to do with it if I help you get well? Yeah.
And are those thought patterns that make us sick again? And so we got to
Yeah.
break those.
Yeah. Yeah. I have noticed with Cayce's teaching about body, mind, and spirit that if I get up on the wrong side of the bed in the morning, if I will not push through the day, but rather sit quietly for just 15, 20 minutes and recenter myself, suddenly it all shifts. And I'm not some thought or nothing, no thought came to me. I just recentered or calmed, but somehow during the sleep cycle, I got uncomfortable, unhappy, disenchanted, and woke up blue, you know? And I have pushed myself through the day, and that always leaves me that night blue. But when I sit down and pause and I go within, the body is still. So now the deeper self gets to adjust me like a chiropractic adjustment. And tweak, and suddenly I'm better for the day.
That's fantastic.
Well, I got it right out of Cayce, you know. He said, you always think by doing something you're going to change everything, but often you need to center yourself first, to go within, and then come out reoriented, you know? And that always helped a lot. Isn't it amazing, the stuff that came through Cayce?
Oh, absolutely. You know, I think Yulin used to say everyone has a choice each day whether to meditate or not to meditate,
Yeah.
and what a difference that makes in people's lives.
Yeah.
And I think there's this Buddhist saying that says everyone should meditate for 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Unless they're really busy, then they should meditate for an hour.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I read my first Cayce book when I was 16, and I wanted to study how to meditate, but there was hardly anything to study. But gradually, more and more material was published, and I started to study all different kinds of meditation. And I can tell you that my wife and my children would say to me, when I wasn't quite my better self, "Did you meditate today?" Because they could tell you're not in the right place.
Yeah. Something that also really helps me is hypnotic suggestions.
Hypnotic suggestions?
Yeah.
Self-hypnotic?
Self-hypnotic suggestions.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Well, isn't your mantra, "I forgive Geraldine," a self-hypnotic?
It absolutely is.
Yes.
Yeah.
You did that, yeah.
Yeah, it's, well, you know, I'll have a hypnotic tape or a hypnotic recording, and I'll listen to it at night. And I feel like when I do it and when I don't do it, it makes a big difference.
And it's your voice.
It's my voice.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's good. Yourself is listening to yourself.
Yes.
What yourself is desiring, your inner self is hearing. Hey, I'd like to change this.
Self-listening to self. Yes.
Right. Yeah, that's good. Well, I'm really looking forward to this program. June 18th,
Absolutely.
Saturday, the week before Congress, June 18th.
The day before Congress.
Huh?
It's the day before Congress. So Congress
starts on
the
Sunday.
On the 19th.
So
it's going to be on the 18th.
18th, Saturday.
Yeah, and it's going to be a great program. You're going to learn stuff about the readings that no one has ever heard before. I'm going to be talking about reading recipients that no one has ever heard before.
Oh, yeah. You've just told me stories I've never heard before.
Absolutely, and we're going to go deeper on why some of them didn't reach their potential, look at
Okay.
addictions, negative thought patterns. So it's going to be a great program.
Great. Well, everyone, look forward to Jon Shatat's program coming up June 18th. Go to our website, edgarcayce.org, O-R-G, and register for that program. Thank you for coming today.